we shot in the middle of COVID. You know, we shot in 2020 in October. And so there were a whole lot of restrictions around that in terms of casting, in terms of, you know, doing auditions and all that kind of thing. So it wasn't necessarily easy. You know, the process of sort of finding people and talking to people. There was a lot of actors who weren't comfortable shooting at that time, which I completely understand. So it sort of narrowed us down. But to be honest, like, those two were at the very top of the list, you know, for the longest time. And we thought they were pretty out of reach. We're like, okay, here we are making this weirdo indie film, you know, like, so to have them come out and be receptive to the film and interested in doing it, and these conversations that started and were born from those first conversations with them, you know, it's a dream come true as a director. I mean, you know, and the other actors, you know, our other leads, Caitlin Nacon, Gabriel Rush, are the teenagers in the film, and they really were, like, sort of knocked it out of the park and were so fun to work with as well. We looked through a ton of different sort of teenagers and came across them, and the chemistry there was really amazing too, so we lucked out, basically. I think obviously most people know him from his stand-up work, and I had watched a previous film of his that came out. It was a Sundance film a few years ago, and it was a very dramatic role, and it was a role where he definitely revealed that he has more in him than just comedy, and really I think his stand-up does that too. He's not an over-the-top comedian who does big gestures and things like that. Like he really keeps it pretty grounded in his comedy. I mean, he does voices and things, but he's really just standing there talking into the mic, you know, and so you can see that there's this really grounded nature to him. And so I think it was very obvious to me that that he would really work for the part, for both parts really. He plays two roles in the film, but to have you know, him as a children's science TV show host, like a goofy Bill Nye the Science Guy character, like that's like so natural for him, and that was the first thing actually we shot, and he was so just like comfortable in that role. I mean, that's him, you know what I mean? Like him in this kind of, you know, goofy, joking kind of way, and then him acting opposite Rhea Seehorn for the more dramatic scenes. And Rhea is like a complete brilliant genius when it comes to drama, and has been in the TV world for so long. And so what she brought to the table was really fantastic, and I think that they really worked off of each other in a really amazing way, because Jim hasn't done a whole lot of drama, but is really getting into it and wants to do it. He loves indie filmmaking, and I think to have somebody like Rhea, like a total pro, been in it forever, that dynamic really was fun. She was just at a different level. Like, I hadn't worked with somebody so professional, so attuned to the process, that she, like, her work ethic and the way in which she could sort of click in and out of the character was really unbelievable. There's this scene where she is basically like having an argument with her daughter, and it escalates to this point. She kind of explodes in the scene, and it was fascinating to see her in that part, because like 5 seconds after she did that explosion, she sort of came back down to earth and was like, okay, so was that good? You know what I mean? It's just like, are you kidding me? Like, you just went through this whole arc. Yeah, so she's just a real talent. I think I took from her like a kind of a process, like oriented sort of inclination that she has. I think that was really inspiring. And she's an artist as well. She's a fine artist, a painter. And I also come from the fine arts world. I was painting and sculpture for my undergrad. And so we really connected on that degree. And you know, we're sort of trying to work out, you know, some future stuff as well, potentially. She's brilliant. That's kind of all I can say about her. Born and raised in Ohio, in Columbus, and seems like all the films that I make end up having some kind of tie back to the Ohio world. I think, you know, as I was growing up there, I didn't really realize how strangely unique it was, because it's so average in like the most kind of interesting way. Actually, it's kind of you know, statistically speaking, one of the most sort of average places in America, which makes it one of the strangest, to be honest, because it sort of checks all the boxes. And so I like to explore that kind of, like, the uprooting of that normalcy, and I think that this film, you know, Linoleum, really kind of has that kind of flavor to it, where it's sort of like about a family in turmoil. And I think often in middle America we don't really, you know, like these sort of suburban stories, you know, that explore that, and that's kind of the realm we're living in. It's set in a fictional town in Ohio, outside of Dayton is what it says, called Fairview Heights. And actually my first movie, little Easter egg, is it's also set in the same little town. So so hopefully as time goes on I can sort of connect all these movies. It's it's the extended cinematic Colin West universe. Exactly. I mean, I think the story was born out of a whole range of sort of my own personal inclinations and intuitions, as it always is, I think, with artists. But this one particularly was very. It was sort of like a combination of all the things I was interested in. I think some of my previous films sort of really focused on one thing or another, and this one, it feels like a great kind of, I don't know, like broad look at everything I'm interested in. And I think like for the next, 30 years, I'm interested in sort of exploring all the little different aspects of that film. Like, and so I do like that this is sort of happening earlier on in my career where, this film can kind of explore those topics. And, this one in particularly is centered around a children's science TV show host who essentially tries to build a rocket ship in his garage. And there's a whole lot of other sort of strange, surreal things that start happening in the world. But all of that is kind of born from, again, this kind of tie to normalcy and uprooting that and what is normal, what is average, and how sort of to explore the emotions around that. And so, yeah, it's been a fun journey for sure. I think that I actually consider genre less than you might expect, because the film itself does have, it's a comedy it's got comedy elements, but it's really a family drama, and with this sort of like sci-fi, like kind of dusting over the top of it. And I don't really like overthink genre as I'm writing. It just sort of comes out. I'm a big sci-fi nerd. My dad sort of like showed me all the big sci-fi stuff growing up, all the books and things as well. And so I kind of caught that bug back when I was a kid, and it just kind of doesn't go away. I think that's something that's just like kind of threaded into my work, where my mind just goes to those places kind of like as conceits and as kind of concepts. So there's kind of no escaping it. But I like that. I mean, I like this kind of genre blend. Yeah, I definitely intend to, kind of chase those threads and see where they lead. I think that's really what led to this script. It took me a long time to write this script. I mean, the first draft didn't take a long time, but it took a lot of edits. It was about a 4 or 5 year process of writing this script. And in the meantime, I was writing other scripts as well. But I kept coming back to this one and like changing it and warping it more and more. And I'm very interested in sort of starting that process again. So yeah, sort of an off to the races thing now. It was amazing. It was pretty overwhelming, Chris, because there was all of these aspects that kind of came into play where it's sort of like we're getting back into the film festival mindset. We're all getting back in person. It's incredibly exhausting because I think everybody in the last 2 years has become like introverted hermits, myself very much included. And coming out of this, I'm excited, and I'm very excited to hang out with people and sort of, get out there and be in front of crowds. But I'm also like, it's exhausting in this way of like, oh my gosh, now I have to put that game face on, you know what I mean? But it's been a really good reception, and here at South by, it's such a fun festival, and it's such a celebratory festival, such great reception from the audiences, and, there were laughs, and I could see people crying. It was like, finally, you know what I mean? I'm like, finally, we're back to this like in-person thing, and I'm sure you guys are excited too. It's like, here we go, we get to do this in person again. I often like to answer this question, and not in a cop-out way, and I'll get into it more, but it was something I learned as I was in the fine arts world from Ann Hamilton, this woman that I worked for a long time. She would always say, it means exactly what it is. And I think that's a way to think about this film in terms of its expression, because I do think that there's a lot of kind of layering, and sort of the film talks to itself a lot and kind of circles back on itself. There's, there's this kind of big reveal towards the end, and I think it's a combination of a whole lot of elements. I think thematically it definitely dives into issues of identity and memory and achievement and success and what that is and what that means. And so I guess like, I think everybody's going to take what they want from it, from all these different elements. But I hope really that there is a, broadly speaking, like a sense of, like I just said, hope that comes from watching this movie, because it is sort of a sad movie, but with an uplifting, pun intended, kind of way.